What's up, challengers? Welcome to the gym. My name's Gym Leader Geo, and this is episode 7 of the Locker Room, where the San Francisco Giants are going to be team building against Chimpact and his team, the Philadelphia Scizors. On the left, you can see my 11 drafted Pokemon as a recap. That is Entei, Manaphy, Cresselia, Zapdos, Nidoking, Mega Absol, Granbull, Chestnut, Mismagius, Ditto, and Regirock. And on the right, you can see his 11 drafted Pokemon. And they're kind of organized in a system from the top being the most likely to the bottom being the least likely that I think he'll bring. However, it's worth noting a couple of things. One, the top 6 do not mean I think he's bringing these 6. And the bottom, even though I have them at the bottom, I just gotta say, all 11 of his Pokemon are totally viable. I will not be surprised if a single one of these Pokemon make it to the team. And the reason I say that the top 6 Pokemon aren't the Pokemon that I'm most confident he brings is because there are several of these Pokemon who are more likely to be brought if another is brought. So for example, it's pretty likely that he brings Politoed. He's not guaranteed to because he might be scared of the Manaphy. But there's a relatively good chance he brings the Politoed. If he does bring the Politoed, he is way more likely to bring the Kingdra, and he's way more likely to bring the Metagross. And if those two things are true, he's way less likely to bring the Tauros. So, he can go... Phone, you get one. I'm telling you, Phone. That's it. You go again, you're going on the bed. Distractions. Okay. He has brought... with relative consistency, about 4 of the same Mon to most of the games, that being Tornadus, Mega Diancie, Scolipede, and Steelix. And then he's also brought to quite a few of the matches the Cofagrigus, and then everything kind of trails off a little bit after that. So some of my team building confidence is around that repetitive nature. And some of it is based on things that I think he thinks he needs to counter on my team. So these are the 11 Pokemon that he has on his draft in the order that I think are more likely to less likely that he brings. And that is Tornadus T, Scolipede, Mega Diancie, Steelix, Cofagrigus, the Kingdra, Politoed, Tauros, Metagross, Blastoise, and Celebi. So let's go over the 6 Pokemon that I brought and for this week and why I'm going to be using these 6. We've got Zap Zap the Zapdos, DDG the Cresselia, absolutely the Absol, Prince the Nidoking, Dwayne the Regirock Johnson, and Remix the Ditto. So let's talk a few things here. 1, the rain against my team. He has a rain team. He hasn't opted to really use it as a rain team that often. Were he to want to do that, he would have to recognize that it does make Manaphy more of a threat. As you can see, it didn't bring Manaphy. If he does opt to do it, it also weakens my Entei. So if he's worried about my Entei, he might bring it to weaken that. As you can see, didn't bring Entei. So I've built a team that's relatively well equipped to handle pretty much anything and doesn't care about the rain. It doesn't help me, it doesn't hurt me, I don't really care if it's there. The only thing about it is that I need to be aware of the power it brings to some of his other Mon. If he does end up bringing that Politoed, then the Steelix is harder to kill with fire. The Kingdra potentially has Swift Swim, potentially it's Sniper and a Crit Dra, and the rain just helps it boost its Water Stab. The Blastoise, of course, gets empowered, and Fire-type attacks against the Celebi are weakened. So it does carry with it a little bit of a problem for several of my Pokemon, but there are ways around it. So the rain... it's a powerful tool for him. However, bringing it locks him into a few key choices, and it'll make playing around his team a little bit different. Not easier, just different. Because he's got threats that I think are more threatening individually. As a collective, if he opts to bring the rain team, he's got a relatively decent one, and I'll have to play around that also. So let's look at the sets a little bit more in depth. The Zapdos is running a mixed defensive set with leftovers, running Volt Switch, Heat Wave, Roost, and Defog. Max HP, and enough defense and special defense investment to survive the hardest hitting physical move that Tornadus T could have for Zapdos, and the hardest hitting special move that Tornadus T could have for my Zapdos. So, the hardest Tornadus T could hit Zapdos on the special side is with a modest, I'm assuming Life Orb, not Specs. We'll adjust the playstyle if I see that in that regard. A Life Orbed Heat Wave will 3-hit KO at best the Zapdos. It cannot 2-hit KO me. A Life Orbed Adamant 252 Smackdown is the hardest physical move you can use to hit Zapdos. Both of those fail to 2-hit KO me. Even after Rocks, I think. Actually, one of them might even fail to 3-hit KO me. I don't have the calcs immediately open to show you guys, but I have Zap Zap here to, with relative confidence, check and potentially whittle that Tornadus down a little bit. So we have that. The Tornadus is a very versatile Pokemon. It could be running Assault Vest. It could be running Life Orb, a much more offensive set. It could be a lot of different things, really. It could run a Berry to try and help take on key threats. You got to really be careful with the Tornadus T. The Regenerator ability is huge for it. You've got to... I don't have anything that can outright OHKO it without a boost, and so I have to play around it like the very real threat that it is. And so I need to keep Zap Zap healthy until that thing is whittled, or I'm not too worried about it. I do have a lot of answers for it on my team, so it's not a terrifying Pokemon for me, but it is something that he's going to be very able to keep around for a while if he plays it intelligently. So that is why I have Zap Zap the way he is. Other notable things, the lightning coverage is completely unresisted outside of the immunity that he has to it on the Steelix, and the one resist that he has on Celebi. Of course, Heat Wave is super effective against both of those things. So Zap Zap is in a relatively decent position to just spam Volt Switch, switch it up to Heat Wave if I really need to. Moving on, we have DDG. He's running a Tanga Berry with Psychic, Moonblast, Lunar Dance, and Moonlight. I toyed with a ton of DDG sets, and ultimately, the reason I have it as it is mostly for the Scolipede. Scolipede is a very likely bring. He's brought it quite a lot. It hits a speed tier that is very damaging to my team, and it has coverage moves that can hit a lot of my team super effectively, potentially even OHKOing them. Notable things is that an offensive Scolipede outspeeds and OHKOs Entei, which is unfortunate for me. It also, the EQ also OHKOs my Nidoking. The Rock Slide 2-hit KO, or has the potential to 2-hit KO my Zap Zap. It doesn't necessarily, but does have the potential to do that. It's unfortunately got the Mega Horn, which is super effective against Cresselia. Outside of that, it doesn't have much to hit Cresselia very hard. So, for example, if it was opting to go for a Rock Slide, Cresselia could switch in. The Tanga Berry would allow it to survive one Mega Horn, and I could do a lot of damage to it with Psychic. So it's dangerous to switch in on it directly. I can relatively safely predict that he will be running offensive if he opts to bring it. He could be running a Baton Pass variety with it, but I don't super see the point of that, to be really frank. It would besuit him to have a little extra speed on some of his slower threats like Metagross, but I do still have answers around that. Most notably, I brought up Metagross because he's one of the most obvious recipients of a speed boost. Everything else is kind of like either already fast enough and doesn't really need it, or have other ways to work with boosts and it doesn't really need the assistance of Scolipede. So I'm pretty sure it would be offensive if he brings it. Let's move on to Absol. Absol is, in playtesting and in practice and in all my calculations, what would appear to be my win condition this week. Absol, of course, in running the Absolute as the item, because it has to, is running Knockoff, Sucker Punch, Play Rough, and Swords Dance. I've been opting to bring Protect a lot on him recently just because I really like to get the safe Protect off. However, Absol is in a really unique position to really turn the tides of a match for me this week. After one Swords Dance, I one-hit KO everything on his team with the exception of Mega Diancie, Steelix, and Blastoise, I believe. The Torn T, if it's defensive, also there's a chance I don't two-hit KO, or sorry, one-hit KO after a Swords Dance, so I need to kind of scout some of those things, but everything else I'm relatively safe once I get one Swords Dance up. So my win condition this week is to bring in Absol safely against something that will not one-hit KO me as I set up the Swords Dance. He has several of those, but I can only do that once I am confident that a majority of his other threats are already weakened enough to the point that I can do that. So looking at this list, potential teams that I could see him bringing, even though it's ordered in 6, like I said, the top 6 are not the 6 I'm saying he brings. I think the most likely thing, I have Cofagrigus up there because I think he might be scared of Entei. Entei, of course, the Fire Stab is pretty devastating against a good number of his team. That said, the Politoed might come in lieu of that as a switch into Entei. Hard to say, hard to be sure, but I think if I were to predict a team like, say, Tornadus, Scolipede, Mega Diancie, Steelix, maybe it could be Celebi Metagross, it could be Kingdra Politoed, it could be Blastoise Tauros. It's really hard to say about the last 2, but I'm fairly confident about the top 4. I think those 4, if he doesn't bring one of those top 4, I am incredibly surprised. The only way I could see him leaving one of those out is if he leaves the Tornadus T out after looking at Zap Zap and going, there's just no way. There's no way I can handle the Zap Zap. So those top 4 I'm relatively confident against, and Absol can run train against those after I get just a little bit of damage off on that Mega Diancie. Fortunately, neither of the 2 Pokemon that stop this, or have the potential to stop a setup Mega Absol, have any kind of reliable recovery outside of Rest. And if one of them has Rest, it cannot have an item to wake it up. So really, I'm in a pretty good position. Knock off Sucker Punch, Play Rough as the main attacks of choice. The main reason for that is the Play Rough is the hardest hitting move I have for Diancie without sacrificing a massive amount of accuracy. So obviously Iron Tail would do more to the Diancie, but I cannot risk a 70% accurate move when I get a setup like that. Now, Play Rough is only 90%. I've missed a Play Rough just last match, and it lost me a lot of momentum in doing so. But I'm gonna count on it not missing again for me, because at +2, it's the way to take out Mega Diancie. It does up to, I believe, 96% on the minimum scale. I can actually KO it. I can OHKO it once I'm set up, but there's not a guarantee that I do that. So that's why I want to weaken it just a little bit before I start trying to get this setup off. Mr. Prince, the Nidoking, running Choice Scarf, Sheer Force, Earth Power, Sludge Wave, Thunderbolt, and Flamethrower. Don't quote me on those last 2 moves. I'm still thinking about it. In playtesting for a while, Flamethrower was replaced by Shadow Ball. The Shadow Ball is there because of the Steelix Tornadus core. So against the Steelix, I want to OHKO it with Earth Power. That said, if he switches into Torn, Earth Power is not going to do anything for me. If he's in on Torn and he predicts a Thunderbolt, he could switch into Steelix, who is immune to the Thunderbolt. I had Shadow Ball there because it hits the Celebi and the Metagross super effectively. That said, so does Flamethrower. That said, Flamethrower doesn't hit them super effectively if we are in the rain. So with Choice Scarf, it's all about predictions, and so I like to have a safe move on there that hits everything. For a while, that move was Surf, might be useful and might go back on there. Shadow Ball might go back on there to hit the Cafagriga, super effective. That said, Earth Power still 2-hit KOs it, so what is the point in that? Still deciding on that last move. Haven't sent this out to be genned yet. Gonna maybe ask my front office one last question in that regard. But that is the Nidoking set that I'm bringing for this match. Dwayne the Reggie Rock Johnson running Leftovers. He is sturdy with Rock Slide, Earthquake, Iron Head, and Stealth Rock. His set has also been changed quite a little bit, but the reason he's coming as a... no, he is absolutely not running Lax. Excuse me. No, no, no. No, no, no. You are running Impish, sir. The reason he is coming is because Scolipede. He is a great answer to Scolipede. Scolipede cannot hit it very hard with anything except for Earthquake. If he is going to opt to hit me with Earthquake, he fails to 3-hit KO me after Leftovers, and Rock Slide, although Stone Edge will OHKO it, or has the potential to OHKO it, and Rock Slide does not, he can only 3-hit KO me if he has Life Orb Recoil, and after hitting some Life Orb Recoil against me, Rock Slide will take it out anyway, and really, once I get it weak enough, it's not really that big a deal to me, because I do have other answers to outspeed it and kill it. Remix is coming. Remix just got the spot super recently. Before that, there's been some movement in slot 6 here. For a little while, Manaphy was there. I just don't think Manaphy... I think it's too easily stopped. Without setting up, it's not terribly threatening to a lot of his team. He has physical threats that can 2-hit KO me. And then he has special threats that can 2-hit KO me. So regardless of whether I run physically defensive to survive those 2-hit KOs and make them 3-hit KOs, I then succumb to getting 2-hit KO'd by some of his special threats. Most notably, I'm looking at Diancie, Scolipede, and Tornadus, the 3 Pokemon I think are most likely that he brings. Without setting up, I can't really threaten them with a 2-hit KO or a 1-hit KO. And with setting up, they unfortunately can 2-hit KO me back, one or the other of them. So I'm not going to opt to bring Manaphy this week. I know that he could be running the Politoed, and I could take real advantage of that, but I think the Manaphy scares off the Politoed more than that. I'm not opting to bring Entei because in practice, it's too easy for him to stop it. He has multiple physical walls who... match up relatively well against it. It's a hard sell, guys. It's really hard. I'm not confident with my 6th Pokemon pick being the right move for me. But Remix does give me the potential to help against the Kingdra. The Kingdra does match up really well against my team. If it's a crit draw, it can set up on a force switch if I am put in that position and can really hurt me. DDG fortunately can survive a crit on a crit from a Draco Meteor. So if it does opt to go for focus energy on the first turn as I switch into DDG, I can hit it with a Moon Blast, do a good amount of damage to it, and then outspeed it with something else and OHKO it the rest of the way to dead. For example, Prince will be able to outspeed it if it's not in, well, if it's not in the rain. If it's in the rain and it's Rain Dance, then or then Swift Swim, then I'm not super worried about it. But Remix is a really good answer to it. It'll be really helpful for me in that regard. If it's potential subset, Crest will be really useful for it. Keeping around specific defensive and offensive checks will be useful for me. I don't want to give him the opportunity to build too much offensive momentum. I need to scare out some of those offensive threats, get him into something that Absol can set up on, and that's got to be where I win this week, because it's a very hard matchup. He has a lot of very powerful Pokemon. I know Tauros is PU. I gotta be honest, I have no idea why. I have no idea why Tauros is that low ranked. I have no idea why it's tier 5. I have no idea why none of us have thought to draft it before. Tauros is power. That thing, Life Orb, Sheer Force, Rock Climb, hits super hard. I don't know how we missed this. It's a great Pokemon. He recently picked it up. It doesn't do great against DDG. But, you know, there you have it. Notable exceptions, people that I was thinking about bringing that ended up not bringing. Chestnut, unfortunately, just doesn't quite match up against a lot of the Pokemon. Diancie deals with it too effectively. It's okay against the Steelix, but why would I really do that? I don't really need it. Tornadus, of course, wrecks it. It's not a great switch into the Cofagrigus because Cofagrigus could burn it. It can't survive from the Kingdra, a Draco Meteor that is. The Politoed, in the rain, it could burn me with a Scald. I'm not a great switch in for that reason, and Grass is horrible against his team, so even if I threatened it out, he could easily go into something that resists that. Kind of resists the Tauros, but Tauros can pack Zen Headbutt and 2-hit KO it, also learns Aerial Ace. Psychic from the Celebi, Ice Beam from any of the water Pokemon, really, and Metagross has the Stab Psychic, so couldn't bring that. I mentioned a lot of the other threats. It's so hard to build against this man. I really would love to see your guys' thoughts on the matter. Leave them in the comment section down below. Sorry I've been a little worse at responding to your comments recently. It has been busy on my end, and I took the last couple of... I may not have showed it that much, but I did take the last couple of losses pretty hard, and it's made me very unenthused to really respond to comments, to really read my comments too in depth, because even though a lot of you have been very supportive, I think I have some of the most supportive fans ever, which I was not expecting. I was expecting after I went on that quick win streak at the beginning of the season that I'd pick up a lot of new followers who only really cared to watch me because I was winning. But a lot of you have been very supportive of me, saying you'll get the next one, and I do appreciate that, but it is still hard to read because there are still some negative comments out there. So I'll try and be a little better at reading the comments this time around. So thank you guys so much for your support. Definitely go check out Chim in the... I'll leave a link to his channel in the comments down below. And let me know. I am curious what you guys think you would bring different, and maybe the team building ideas that you would have. Really, his speed tiers are very effective against my team, and I had to work around that. That's my biggest concern. The unfortunate thing is that usually when you pack big speed tiers like that, you're relatively easy to wall because a lot of very fast Pokemon don't have that hard-hitting moves. Unfortunately, his ones do happen to, if they're outspeeding, also very effectively match up offensive against my team. So it's going to be a real brawl this week, and I'm really excited to do it. I love Chimpact. I've been watching that guy for over a year now. Learned about him through PokeAim, who was one of the first people I followed on YouTube. And him and Envy, man, I'm really excited to be in a league with them, and really excited to play against Chimpact. So definitely go check him out. I'll leave a link to his channel in the comment section down below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, my name is Gym Leader Geo. You guys are the challengers. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you guys next time.